So this unit is focused on cellular energy, and we're going to start by talking mainly about photosynthesis. So we're really going to cover these first three objectives right here for this first week and on the first quiz. If you have a textbook or if you'd like a textbook, I can show you, I can check one out to you, and here are the chapters that we'll be covering within the textbook. The textbook goes into much more detail than we go into in class. So in class we drew a basic circle showing how cell respiration and photosynthesis are connected to each other. So autotrophs are any organism that make their own food. These include plants, and most of the time they do something called photosynthesis, although occasionally there are organisms that can do something called chemosynthesis. But autotrophs are going to try and make their own food. So they need some building blocks in order to do that. And the first thing that they need is the CO2 that we breathe out, actually. And then they also need some water. But that's not enough because food requires energy, and so they actually have to get energy from somewhere, and they tend to get that energy from the sun. So I'm going to draw my little sun right here. So usually it's from the sun, although it can be from artificial light, and so that goes into the plant as well. And then inside a cell structure called a chloroplast, the plant will produce sugar, which is this giant molecule right here, and sugar's simple sugar, a single monosaccharide like glucose is 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens. Oops, that's a bad 6. And then also, as a byproduct, they produce the oxygen that we breathe in, which brings us to heterotrophs. So heterotrophs need oxygen, and they need food, and they can't make their own, so they have to consume it. And in the process of consuming that food and breaking it down, they produce something called ATP. And ATP is another form of energy, chemical energy, and it's the form that the cell can use. And then as byproducts, heterotrophs produce carbon dioxide, which we breathe out, and water. This is why when you breathe onto a piece of glass, it fogs up. That's actually the water. But we're not done, because autotrophs don't just do photosynthesis. They also do cellular respiration, just like heterotrophs, because they also need to produce this ATP. So they actually use a portion of the oxygen that they produce and the sugar that they produce in order to produce ATP to run their cell. So the general equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water yields sugar and oxygen gas. So this isn't balanced, so in order to make this very large sugar, we have to have 6 carbons to start with and 6 waters, and in order to, and at the end we will end up with 6 oxygen molecules in addition to 1 large sugar. So this takes place inside the cell, specifically inside an organelle called the chloroplast. And the chloroplast has in it some stacks of green, what look like pancakes, and these are called thylakoids. And the liquid that surrounds those thylakoids is called the stroma. And I'm not going to test you on that, but you will see it in all of the literature, so you need to know what it is. So inside the thylakoid, light strikes the membrane that makes up the thylakoid, and it actually is used to split water apart. And of course, when you split water, you end up with oxygen, which leaves the chloroplast. And you also end up with some ATP, that's that energy that was captured, and then something called NADPH. And the key here is the H and the energy it carries. So the light reactions produce the ATP and NADPH, and they go on to the next set of reactions. So the next set of reactions is called the Calvin cycle, and it takes place in that liquid, the stroma. And the Calvin cycle takes in the hydrogen from the light reactions as well as the energy, and it rearranges it all into sugar. Of course, it's missing a couple of things, specifically carbon and oxygen, which comes conveniently packaged in carbon dioxide. And then all of that gets rearranged using the energy from the light reactions into a molecule of simple sugar. So that simple sugar is usually glucose, but it can also be galactose or fructose. And that's the basics of photosynthesis. So you'll see that it starts with water and carbon dioxide and light energy, and through the process, through the light reactions first, water is split and oxygen is released, and energy carriers move over to the Calvin cycle, where they are used in addition to that carbon dioxide to make a molecule of sugar. And also, one of the things that's created is, not really created, it's produced is a product, basically the same thing as the energy carriers here, except without any energy or any hydrogen. So you will end up having to come back this way to get recharged with energy and more hydrogen. So here are some questions to be discussed in class. They are also covered in the virtual lab activity, which we did on Friday. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible.